speaking of controversy, right? Controversy. And what people are saying online, a lot of people are talking about the ads, of course.
Oh, yes.
And there's a lot of, woohoo, this one was funny, this one was great. But people were upset once you know the history behind the Rams commercial, correct?
Correct.
So what happened? They used Martin Luther King's speech 50 years ago, the speech he gave on yesterday's day. So on February 4th, 1968, he gave this specific speech. And the title of that speech is, I'm pulling it up here, Drum Major Instinct. And so he goes into length about what Ariane and how did Rams use it.
Okay, so the Rams commercial was about inspiring hope and promoting acts of service and using their commercial to do that. And they used excerpts from Dr. King. Well, they used Dr. King's speech to promote this idea of service. But what they chose not to do was put context to this. In the speech that they pulled from, Dr. King talks about the problems with capitalism and how American advertisers in general use their ad campaigns to persuade the American consumers to buy things that they don't need. When that is exactly what Dodge did. They're using this ad and taking his words out of context to have Americans have positive feelings towards the brand so that they're inspired to buy more products. And I was like, everyone's scratching their head like, how, Sway? How is this the way that you choose to use the ad? I didn't know it.
In that time, right. In that moment,
but
I'm
Twitter
thinking,
sure did educate me.
You hear his voice, and right away you're drawn in. And then you learn that 50 years ago to the day. I'm like, wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
You're sucked in exactly to his point in his speech 50 years ago. And then come to find out, someone had put the excerpt where he talks about capitalism at its finest. They used that and they put it over the video of Rams. So I want to go ahead and play. Should we play the original commercial that ran yesterday, and then we'll play what this person did on Twitter that actually helps you better understand. So let's go ahead and cue up the first one that ran yesterday. It's coming right now, we promise. Our producer, Christy's in her ear saying, 1 second. So anyways, there we go. Let's take a listen.
If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know the theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. Soul generated by love.
That's the worst part. It's the built to serve. When you go ahead and you, when you drive your point home even further by taking his words and create a slogan out of them that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual words that he's saying in the speech.
Right, because Drum Major Instinct, I'm looking here, and this is, I wanted to confirm that this was the speech that they pulled from. Because, the internet can kind of sometimes go crazy and get offended, as they should, but then sometimes elaborate on things. So this was, in fact, the speech, again, Drum Major Instinct. And the point of it, it says, King encouraged his congregation to seek greatness, but to do so through service and love. And again, condemning capitalism. So we're going to go ahead and play this other version of the commercial where they took the same commercial visually
and
but placed the capitalism.
And this is the same speech.
Same speech.
Same speech.
Correct.
Just later on
paragraphs.
Okay, now I'm caught up.
Okay, we're having some internet issues, but it's interesting when you hear it because you go, oh, I understand why people are getting mad. So let's play it.
Advertisers, those gentlemen of massive verbal persuasion. And they have a way of saying things to you that kind of gets you in the bind. In order to be a man of distinction, you must drink this whiskey. In order to make your neighbors envious, you must drive this type of car. In order to be lovely to love, you must wear this kind of lipstick or this kind of perfume. And before you know it, you're just buying that stuff. And I've got to drive this car because it's something about this car that makes my car a little better than my neighbor's car. And I am sad to say that the nation in which we live is the supreme culprit. And I'm going to continue to say it to America.
So
In the
there,
presence of this
Big
there
difference.
you have it.
Right. That
Are you listening to this for the first time?
I am.
What's your reaction?
So, okay, when you watch the first ad, you know, first of all, when Dr. King speaks, there is probably no one more analyzed for speaking style and impact.
Cadence.
And he's one of the most important figures in U.S. history. So you better believe that people know his history. They know his speeches word for word. You could probably write a dissertation on every single speech that he's done for what he was saying in the at what time he was saying, what the impacts are
Consider
down
the
the
time,
road.
yeah.
I mean, there is probably no one more impactful in U.S. history, in recent U.S. history, for speeches and impacts thereafter than Dr. King. So if you're going to go there, you have to do your research.
Yes.
And they could argue, and I would say they could probably argue in a very persuasive way that yes, they understand the other part of it, but they wanted to focus on this, that those words, that brand connects with those words, they believe in those words, they were inspired, they're on the same page. But you cannot take a speech out of context. That is just one of the rules of you know, when you imagine him writing that, he wasn't writing this segment one day and this segment one day and whatever and just kind of threw it all together and said, well, I'm just going to do all these thoughts in one speech today. There's an arc to it. There's an argument. There's a framing of things. I'm making this point, this point, this point, this point to come to this conclusion.
Context.
So you cannot pull it out of context because it's disingenuous and it's disrespectful to the speech as a whole. Even if that segment worked very well for a car ad, I'm sure they did not mean disrespect to the man himself or his speech. But you cannot take, especially one of his speeches, out of context. You just can't do it because you're going to get called on it.
I'm so glad that you used the word persuasion, because when I went to Wake Forest, that's where I studied communications. I took this class called The Power of Persuasion. And my mother thinks it made me a better orator and whatever. I love having arguments in calm language with the power of persuasion behind me. The power of persuasion that they used in this is called liking. And it's when you take a character that the masses like inherently. Martin Luther King Jr., what is there not to like about him? And then link it to a brand that maybe doesn't have a specific connotation towards it, so that when put together with the image that people like, they feel more positively about the brand. Great advertising technique when used properly. When used improperly like this, you get $5-6 million in the hole when you think about how much money they spent on this ad campaign for a minute worth of content, going at $5 million per 30 seconds. You spent a lot of money to dig yourself in a PR hole to now have to spend a whole lot more money to get yourself out of it when you could have just used a different method of persuasion. Why choose that one?
And some could argue, well, they could have used a different part of his speech. Let's just not use Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech
But it's timely.
at all.
I would have liked them,
Not
points
to
for being
advertise
timely.
capitalism,
Exactly.
which he was completely against in the same speech. It's not like they took that stanza from a speech about greatness and giving back or something.
Correct.
It's not like they took that and then placed it in there. This was from a speech going against exactly what it is they're doing, which to me, I know you mentioned, I don't think they were trying to do it out of disrespect. I don't know sometimes. I don't know these people behind there. What is their agenda? And is there a diverse panel of people sitting behind and going, okay, what should we do? Because like you said, there are those people who are great followers of MLK and what it is he said and could absolutely recite a lot of his work. And now in the age of social media especially, and with the Google at our fingertips, all you have to do is, people are going to come at you if you're going to try to repurpose his speech in a bad and negative way.
Now, let me, as I often do, speculate. And I'm the weather guy, so I can speculate on
Yeah,
things.
that's what you do for a living, right?
But to my knowledge, his words and his speeches are his estate has control over how that is used.
Okay.
So I imagine at least a conversation that was had with the King family about using this.
I would think, right?
You would
Let me
think, and we
Google
will
it.
find out, because I'm sure that as we're talking about this will be discovered. But I imagine that they would have to at least have had a discussion with the estate to talk about using this.
Yeah.
Because unless it's one of those situations where
Yeah, you're
that
right.
speech is in the public domain, Therefore, you know, like some of these very old speeches, you can just take and sort of use at your will. But something that's
only 50 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would think it would still be under the control of the king estate. So I'm sure that discussion happened, and maybe they signed off on this. Who knows? But that's got to be part of the story too.
So I have that answer to you.
Who's
AdAge.com
Okay.
put out an article 11 hours ago saying, we worked closely with the representatives from the Martin Luther King Jr. estate to receive the necessary approvals, and estate representatives were a very important part of the creative process every step of the way.
Right. So
interesting.
There you go.
So now we have, and it's funny, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, and I know that because his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." Sometimes you may not play that in its entirety unless it's been cleared. So I know that just working in news, sometimes there are issues related to that. With that said, though, we may have a situation where the King family and the estate understands where they're coming from, and they say, okay, we are okay with this. But remember, you know, Dr. King and his words and what he stood for is actually something much larger than what his estate signs off on or not. At least I believe. And so other people are having an issue with this. Maybe it was fine, it was cleared legally, there's no repercussions that way as far as using that speech out of context. But I think
it'll never be
internet,
okay
or at least
to some
individuals on the internet are saying, you know what, fine, whatever. But really, this is another important part of the speech, and I'm not okay with that. So then they put the YouTube video together, and then people are allowed to then say, you know what, I agree with that, or you know what, you're taking this too far. It wasn't about that.
And it kind of reminds me of the case there a couple of weeks ago. We had talked about that H&M ad, correct? And we had the little boy who was wearing the sweatshirt and it said King of the Jungle, okay?
Right.
And all of us came. I came to his defense saying, look at him, poor boy. I'm sure the parents weren't there to sign off on this.
Right.
When at the end of it, the mom came out and said, guys, you guys are blowing this up.
Right.
There was nothing wrong with this. So here we are as the internet, as the people coming to his defense, when the person who's protecting him, just like the estate protecting Martin Luther King's words and his property, essentially, may say that it was okay and it was signed off on.
But this is that could be a situation, in my opinion, where the mom is so excited about this opportunity for her young son to get a modeling career started that she's like, you know what? I'm not going to fight this. My kid is going to get great exposure from this. I'm going to put I don't know what her feelings are, but I could see it being a case of I'm going to put my feelings aside to just allow my kid to shine.
Well, she did come out. She came out and said all of that,
but not seeing what could happen.
Or the greater responsibility that he has, right? And just like all of us have, because we have a certain platform, right, to speak publicly. Just like as a model, you have a certain platform. I would imagine to say, I want to wear this or not. I don't know at that young age if you have that kind of luxury. Well, the parent or whoever his guardian is who's looking over him, or his agent or manager, to say, hey, this young boy, due to the color of his skin especially, due to the time that we're in, this is his opportunity to represent. And are we doing it right or wrong? So
it's hard.
It's hard.
I want to know more from the
estate.
Why should we?
Exactly. And to that point, Jared Newland says, first off, it was not negative, no way intended to hurt someone. So, you know, to that point, it's, hey, if the King estate was okay with it, and they make the final decision to use or not use, then what? Then who cares?
We care. I think people who are affected by MLK and his words care. People who don't want to see advertising used in this sort of exploitive way. Is that even a word? Exploitative? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And
I'm not good with words.
To exploit.
Exactly. Use it to exploit Dr. King's message and voice. That is what people are going to be upset about, and they can be upset about it. And Twitter, I actually applaud them for being so in the know. It's like the people who figured out that Melania's speech was copied from Michelle Obama's speech seconds into it.
Yeah.
People are waiting.
They're on it.
You're right. And remember, it's not Twitter. It's people are Twitter. So it's
true.
Individuals are. I mean, there's people that's their baby. They know all these things, and so they hear something. They say, "Wait a second."
Right.
To that point, here's a broader question. Do we make too much out of these ads? Because remember a couple of years ago, the whole thing was the objectification of women, right? There were just so many of these sexy women with doing something totally unrelated just because. So that became a whole thing. And then I remember Donnie Deutsch, who's an advertising executive for years and years, but now he's sort of a commentator. the very next year, he said, hey, I can't stand all these ads. I gave them an F because they were making fun of the dumb man. And he was saying that this is sexist in a way against men, that men never pay attention. They're dumb. They kind of dawdle along. They don't have thoughts or opinions. And it's just like doink, and all they do is sit there and eat dips and watch football games and drink beer. Like, men are much more than that. We need to elevate the game, that women need to be portrayed in a bigger light as reality, and men as well. That we don't just sit there and doink with equality. The boys.
Right.
Like, get hit in the head with something. Oh, well, I'm going to keep eating dip. So, and then it was brought to the bigger point, which is, does every ad need to be scrutinized on a social impact level when maybe it's just mirroring good images with the truck brand, with words that people like, with the individual people like when
100 million people are watching you and you are paying millions of dollars for 30 seconds of time, like, it blows my mind that this could have gotten past somebody. I know they're college educated. They might even have a master's degree. And I'm like, I like to say this, houseway. How did you think that this was okay? I don't know.
I don't know. And I knowing now that the King estate checked off on this, I'm interested to hear more. We always are the first ones. What time is it? It's 8:34. It's very early in the morning. It's the morning after the Super Bowl. We're seeing all of the scrutiny on social media. I want to wait and hear more of the backstory. I want to wait and hear more from the estate, because maybe there were things that we missed in viewing all of this. I would think the people behind his estate are the ones who know his product most and protect his legacy most. So I just want to know a little bit more. But yes, off the cuff, when I learned, right away I was sucked in. And then when I learned that I got sucked in using persuasion, misusing his words, I was like, how could I? We
fell for it.
How could we be so dumb?
It makes me angry, actually. I'm smiling, but it does actually make me angry.
Right, which is why we're talking about it this morning. So.